go from here? We've talked about so much today. I want to give you a few, I'm going to call them on-ramps, give you some resources, and then we're done. Uh, On-ramps are really kind of what I talked about before, all the different topics that I speak on. Today, I wanted to give you these foundations, but there's many of you still saying, how do I talk about media? How do I talk about mental health? So I want to really quickly just walk through a few of these. The first here might just be family discipleship. This is the idea of, as Christians, how do we create an environment for our kids to become, like Christ in our homes? I really love this. Your worldview shapes our values, and our values shape our actions. I think I got this from Josh McDowell a long time ago. I can't remember, but I love that. Your worldview shapes things. So work on the worldview of your kids. I do have a book on this called Media, Faith, Culture, and I do have I have a number of spiritual disciplines I talk about, both in that book and in my new book on parenting. But books by Dallas Willard, Richard Foster's son, Nathan Foster, has a great book on this as well. These are just the daily spiritual gifts or daily spiritual practices or disciplines we do. Reading, praying, studying. How do you do it as a parent? And then how do you teach your kids to do it? How do you model that? Anything by Sticky Faith, the idea of how do you, remember those plastic things from a dollar store you throw at the wall and they stick? How do we make our faith stick? And it talks about things like summer camp and many things. We're actually at a camp today filming this. Send your kids to summer camp. And then there's great Bible apps. I use one called Read Scripture. And before every book of the Bible, there are these wonderful 10, 12-minute cartoons, hand-drawn cartoons, give you the overarching narrative of that book of the Bible. I would also say, as parents, our pastors, our youth groups are assets to us. They are not the primary thing that teaches our kids about faith. We are. They should not be replacing us. But I would say use all those things around you. Whether your church goes to conferences or not, you can drive your kids to it. Every year we've gone to an event in Buffalo, New York called Kingdom Bound. It's just become part of our life. Now I speak at it every year, but we would be taking our kids to it, whether I'm speaking there or not. Just great environments and good conferences in your town. Media is probably what most of you as parents want to deal with. Now I would just say you cannot expect your kids to do things that you're not doing. I had a father come up to me angry and he said, my son spent 3 hours on Fortnite the other night. What do I do? And I'm like, what did you do last night? I don't even know why I asked that. And he said, we're in Toronto. He said, I watched the Toronto Blue Jays game, baseball. And I said, that was 4 hours. It was a longer game than that. It's funny, if we value it, we will do it. But if our kids are watching Fortnite, we think it's not valuable. In my home, I used a quote, I think this came from Tony Campolo 20 plus years ago. Anything can come into my home as long as whoever it is can justify why it should come into our Christian home. Well, it's about Christian or secular, just about if you're going to bring that into our home, justify why it's good, which is an interesting thing because it makes our kids justify why the song can come in or the movie can come in and not me researching it and then saying yes or no. It's teaching them how to research. I do have a book for students and a book for adults, and there's some great books like The Practical Guide to Culture and Walt Mueller. I'm going to give you a slide with a bunch of great resources in a minute, but Walt Mueller is one of them. Now, one of them is actually a blog I have too, how can parents keep updated on trends in culture? One thing would just be following me on YouTube. I have tons of things that I post on this. Two of the bigger ones. One is a 5-part series called A New Narrative. Music, movies, video games, all these things. One is social media. How do we take this old narrative, which is how we talk about things, to a new narrative, which I think works better for our kids? And then I have this 9-part series on how to have a better relationship with our phones. Now, mental health, and again, this is an on-ramp, right? I'm just kind of saying, here's the beginning conversations you're having. Now, this is my journey, and I'm going to simplify my entire talk, and I have full presentations on this. You can find most of these on YouTube. I believe in body, mind, and soul. Your issue might be physical, so see a doctor, eat better, sleep more, exercise daily. Your issue might be emotional, psychological, go see a counselor. Now, here's where language matters. I don't say it might be spiritual. It is incredibly uncommon that mental health is a spiritual root, but I would say that the Bible says you will go through tough times and tough seasons, but God will be with you in those moments. So I still say your faith is what you journey, like my mental health, I journey with my faith in that season. I do have 2 books on this. One is a free ebook, or I think it's $1 on Amazon, called Reset. It's just my breakdown put in book form, which sounds weird. And I think the best book I would suggest is the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook. It's just massive book on all kinds of, eating healthy and sleeping better. And my new book has chapters on all of these. Dating, talk openly and early about this. In my home, you weren't allowed to date till you were 16. I just wanted to talk about guarding your kid's heart. I just didn't need their heart broken over and over again at those young ages. And so we talked about it. I have a full presentation on this. And Andy Stanley has a wonderful 4-part series, Love, Sex, and Dating. And I do have, I think it's 100 questions that when you begin dating, you actually can start talking about these with the person you're dating. It's all on my website. Sex, notice that they're birds and bees right there. Like that, we use that, birds and the bees. No kid knows what that means today. All I would say is this: these should all become the common and not the uncommon. It should become the normal rhythm of our lives. I have a full presentation on this, and I have some great books for you. And this one is just pornography, which, by the way, I think is destroying us as a culture. And this is not just a student thing. The youngest I've dealt with recently is in grade 3. The oldest, I think, was 91. This is men and women of all ages and stages. Again, I have a full presentation on this. I actually have a YouTube video with my top, I think it's 15 books on pornography. 3 of them there. If you have young kids, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, just wonderful things to begin conversations in your home. And drugs and alcohol. This is something that we need to begin to talk about with our kids at younger and younger ages, as we're seeing alcohol trickle down more and more, even into middle school. And there's 2 books here. Gabor Mate, I've already mentioned today. This is one of his other books called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And I do have my top books on drugs and alcohol. So again, I don't usually add that in because this is being filmed. I wanted to just give you a couple of on-ramps. You need to begin to have these conversations with our kids. My website's just my name. It's brettallman.com. At the top is all my social media. And I would just ask if you could follow me, that would be great. I really want the swipe up feature on Instagram, but I need 10,000 followers for it. That lets me just put my YouTube videos in and send you straight to it. And if you click on where it says blog, again, I'm a curator, and on the blog, you will find every topic that I speak on, plus great books, great quotes, great music videos, and great websites and podcasts. Just the best things. At least 4 I've done. I think I've done more now, but the best books on mental health, spiritual disciplines, pornography, and parenting. There's so much here. So I'm just giving you the beginning, and you can then go find the few books that you want. YouTube is just, you can find it off my website, but it's just youtube.com/BrettU, and I have these weekly videos. I would encourage you as well, don't just go to the videos that have lots of views. My most viewed video is like 100,000 views, is Masturbation a Sin. Interesting what we're looking for. But some of my best things, like the new narrative and the how to have a better relationship with your phone, might only be in the hundreds. So don't think lots of views, the best content, lower views is not. And here is 5 great ways for you as a parent to get updated on culture. Parent Q, we've already mentioned. Growing Leaders is Tim Elmore. CPYU is Walt Mueller, the Center for Parent and Youth Understanding. Sign up for their emails. You'll get a weekly email. I think it's weekly or bi-weekly. Everything going on in culture, top things searched on YouTube and other things. It just lets you see, here's where culture is today. Plugged In is focused on the family, and Axis is it's kind of a new player in this realm, but they have a thing called the Teen Culture Translator. 3 things in an email translating from teen speak to adult speak. I find that funny, but it's really important for us. How can you help? You can pray. Pray for the work that I do. Pray for the people who listen to things, whatever topic it might be. Follow me online. You can support. We are a nonprofit. If you go to the very bottom of our website, it talks about support. And you can promote. You can send this to a family member, a friend, or tell someone there's a great book. And I'm going to again, use the same 2 slides that I did at the beginning. This is overwhelming. I know it. So use YouTube, use the blog, use the book, use small groups. Do not do this on your own. And the book is designed as a choose your own adventure, meaning if today you're watching this and you're struggling or your kid is struggling with mental health, turn to mental health. Go there, find what you need. You can pick and choose, or you can just go all the way through it. A couple things before we're done. So where do you start? This is where we need to go as we finish this, right? Where do you actually start moving forward in these conversations? There's a band called For King and Country, phenomenal artists if you don't know them. But one of their songs is called Burn the Ships. And the idea is that when settlers came over, they burned the ships to the ground so they couldn't go back. The lyric of the song is burn the ships and don't look back. Don't look back at all the things we've done wrong. We've all messed up in parenting. You have, I have, we all have. But let's look forward. How do we become, remember the goal of today, how do we become better at what we do? John Maxwell, a leadership guru, he has this one thing where he often says, what is one thing that you could do? So you've heard today, what is one thing that you could do to be better at your parenting, to be better at whether it's parenting styles, discipline, communication, time, all these things, and there's lots of tangents I've talked about. What is one thing? Like I might say family dinners. I might say family meetings just to start this with your family, but whatever it is for you, that's where you begin. And I would encourage you to process properly. Sometimes after a talk like this, and there's a lot of information. I've been called a fire hose speaker before. It's just like a fire hose of information. That's okay. It's a lot, I get it, but go for a walk and the 50 things in your head will drop away. And within the next 3 days, you might only have one thing or two things in your head, and begin with those things. I want these things, and I've said this a few times today, to become the common conversations in our homes, not the uncommon conversations. Please support each other as parents. Some churches get together and do once a month where parents get together and talk about these things. One church they called it Lunch and Learn, where after church, one Sunday a month, they brought in a speaker like me or someone else. They talked about best practices with all of these things. But use the supports around you, pastors, leaders, authors, YouTube, and use everything. Our parenting, like our faith, is built in moments. And I hope for you today that this has been one of those moments that furthers you forward in the conversations of parenting. I want to leave you with the quote that we began with from Ted Cunningham. They will not be with me forever, so I will prepare them accordingly. So my challenge for you is this: prepare your kids accordingly. I'll talk to you soon.